Okay, we're ready for the next session. And we're going to be talking about networking and the TechCrunch conference. Or TechCrunch conferences. There's more than one, isn't there? Yeah? We have Jyrki from Brella, and we have person's name, which is me, presumably. But then we also have Leslie, who's from TechCrunch, who's the conference organizer. So I'm going to take a seat with them. But the way we're going to kick this off is I've got a slight slideshow. So that's what we're talking about today. And watch this little video. Could we have sound on the video, please, back there?
Meeting other founders and expanding your technology is truly invaluable, and having a service to facilitate natural, organic networking is incredible.
I've been to a number of events like this, and a lot of time can be wasted talking to people who are not relevant for your company. So the Brella app helps you kind of sift through a lot of that noise to focus your time.
It allowed me to essentially coordinate all these meetings in a very short period of time, where I was able to schedule, access, vet, and pretty much move forward, which would normally take me, multiple hours and days.
I actually had already lined up all of my meetings before I came to day one. It's helped me optimize my experience here, make great connections.
As a founder, the Brella networking software has been the most amazing thing about TechCrunch Disrupt this year. To be able to connect with the right people, to be able to know where I can meet them, and to even reschedule during the day when things change has been completely awesome.
I love Brella. It's a great software.
Okay, so here we have some stats about TechCrunch. But before we get into that, I'll just leave that up on screen, Leslie. Could you just tell all these guys out there what TechCrunch is and why networking is so important to your events?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Leslie Hitchcock, and I'm the Director of International Events at TechCrunch. So TechCrunch started as a way for our founder to research and understand startups and startup acquisitions when he was a lawyer. And he started writing about it as a blog, and it took off. And his very first big scoop was when YouTube was bought by Google, and he never looked back to lawyering, and he was a writer from there on. So we are 15 years old now, I think, somewhere around there, 13, 15 years old, and we made the progression from just being a web-based publication to having events shortly thereafter the founding, because our founder wanted startups to be able to meet each other and to meet investors. So we went from having a Disrupt in San Francisco to now having upward of 20 conferences and events globally, annually.
Well, so that's a lot of conferences to organize. I'm sure you guys know what the challenges are to that. But can you just tell me also what kind of the programs are within the TechCrunch conference, how that runs, what's the agenda, and what's the networking portion of that?
Yes. So we have our conference, the main stage. We have a couple other stages that have other content on them as well. We have the TechCrunch Startup Battlefield, which is the crown jewel of TechCrunch events, where we find the best startup that is launching on our, in the world, ideally, and ask them to launch on our stage. Companies that we have uncovered through this process have been Dropbox, Mint.com, Fitbit. So, we're not small companies now. And that's the idea, is that we find them before they are big and introduce them to the world, and then they become household names. And then also within that, we have a program that we've started with Brella called CrunchMatch. And that is originally started out as our investor startup matching service.
Okay. So obviously investors are important to the startup companies.
Yes.
But Jyrki, I'd like to come to you now.
Sure.
So how did you get to TechCrunch? Did you walk through the door and say, like, I've got the best matchmaking stuff available for you guys? Because I can see your area back there in the corner of the room is buzzing.
It's buzzing.
So, you know, something's working, right?
Yeah.
Or did they come to you? How did that process work?
Well, Leslie probably has a better story around how they found us or how that happened back in 2016. It was quite early for us back then as well. I mean, Brella, we're from Finland, and so am I. The company's around 4 years old now, and our product development and sort of product vision is still from Finland, and we're very proud of that. But we were quite early when we started talking with you guys, and we've been happy to take on the challenge and over succeed with the expectations we've been given, and I think the results speak for themselves so far.
So Leslie, I mean, from the point of view of the attendees coming to the conference, it's a tech conference. I mean, how open were they to adopt the technology for the matchmaking? Talk us through that.
Yeah, to build on what Jyrki just said, in 2015, I was the global director of events at that point, before we split the role into two. And I was tasked with making our conferences an efficient place to be for our startups and for our investors. And so how would we do that? We were also looking candidly for ways to differentiate ourselves between our competing conferences, which had grown 10x, you know, the sizes that they used to be, while we still stayed small. Our Disrupt Berlin conference is 2,500 to 3,000 attendees, and our TechCrunch Disrupt San Francisco, which is our flagship conference, has just grown to 8,000 attendees from 4,000 attendees. So it's not big, but it's not huge, but it's not small. So how do we make it easy to navigate? And we're all about the startups. They are our most important readers and attendees of our conference. And so how do we engage them more and make them feel like they have a better experience at our conference? So we started out at Disrupt London 2015 with a very small start of an investor startup matching service that we did manually. And it was really tiny. We had 20 meetings. We were very excited about that. But we knew that if we were going to grow, we needed a partner, because doing it ourselves was not efficient use of our time. But we knew that we wanted to do it because the feedback was fantastic. So I found Brella, and through a referral, and the rest is history. They started partnering up with us for our Disrupt New York 2016, and they've been truly our partner since then in helping us scale this project.
So this is a question on my mind is, you love startups, you love working with and you've worked with a startup, really, haven't you?
Yes.
And you've taken them to the next level. So how do you feel about that personally, of being able to give them the space to develop?
We're very, very pleased for them. It has been really amazing watching them, Brella, grow alongside us as this CrunchMatch project. I was in a business development meeting a couple of weeks ago with an event that's in another country that's gigantic, and they said, "Oh, we're going from this meeting to a meeting with somebody called Brella. They're doing our meetings in our conference." And I said, "Oh, we know them very well. Please tell them that we said hi." So being able to watch them grow and succeed has been truly rewarding.
So you're an advocate now, aren't you?
Oh yes.
So Jyrki, tell us about some of the statistics it says statistics to date. So can you just explain what we're seeing here so all these guys can understand how successful networking works in terms of numbers?
Yeah, so of course we've done 4 disrupt events so far in 4 different locations so far, and I think what we started off with, we had a base number and which was done manually, and I think that number was it 50 or?
It was 20 to 50, somewhere in there, yeah, very small.
It was a big manual process, I'm understanding, for the TechCrunch team to do a lot of Excels, a lot of phone calls, a lot of organizations, and that process needed to be automated. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, with the first attempt, we we're able to do around 500 meetings in Disrupt New York. And since that, I think through the marketing that we've been able to really drive those marketing drivers by the TechCrunch team for those attendees and startups and investors, that they understand that what's available. And I think that's how we've been able to grow the engagement and the complete amount of completed marketing and meetings is through a very successful cooperation in how that message is driven through marketing, through different channels, websites, and CrunchMatch itself is marketed as CrunchMatch. It's a brand of their own.
Yep.
Yes, it's powered on our platform, but I think they've been able to really market it as a true value driver for those attendees, why they actually come. And to my understanding, you're giving even requests that, like when...
We have people write us and ask how they can be part of CrunchMatch before they even buy a ticket to the conference now. And so it has just as much name recognition as Disrupt, as the Startup Battlefield, and as TechCrunch now. It's quite remarkable.
So is that a white label solution, or are you using the Brella logo on the actual app on the phone for the attendees? How's that working?
It's not a white label solution.
No.
So basically it's very discreet in a way that, yes, in the top left-hand corner, it is branded by Brella, and it's very small in that sense, but overall, after that, it's very much TechCrunch look-alike.
Okay. Can I just ask you about your experiences, not just TechCrunch, but going to conferences and how important to you networking is? Or is that kind of a backseat thing? Are you there more for the educational? Tell us why the importance of networking for you personally.
Well, you go to a conference or any event, a dinner, up to an 80,000 person conference, and if you don't know who's there and why you would want to know them, then it's not a good use of your time. It's not a good experience. I know this. I mean, I love being in front of people. I love talking to people. But if I don't have an intro to somebody, it's hard to get that conversation started. And so for us, that is a key. It's for me, that's very key to be able to know how to find the people that I want to find and talk to, without having somebody make an introduction to me for me.
Okay. And Jyrki, from your point of view, what are some of the insights that you've gained at Brella on the networking subject or the topic of networking that some of your clients have spoken to you about over the years?
Well, that's a very big question. I think from the broader perspective, I've been in the space, event industry, for over 10 years now, from a first a agency, a producer point of view, to an organizer point of view in Asia and in Europe, and now founding sort of Brella in the US. I think the problem is global. It's networking is an issue in every part of the world. It's not just a trending piece. I think truly that people go to events for many reasons, but more of all, networking or finding a relevant counterpart to talk with is one of the top three for anyone attending an event. That might vary between content and education, meeting relevant people, and maybe inspiration, but meeting people is definitely there. And as long as that is not solved through a technology piece, it could potentially be a huge waste of people's time and money. So, for example, here in Event Tech Live, people are coming to meet vendors, meet partners, meet clients, whatever that is, they need to be facilitated in that way. So it's not just randomly taken up on grabbing a coffee in the same line. It should be organized.
Okay. And Leslie, just go back to TechCrunch. Are you seeing a lot of traffic on the Brella platform pre-event? But how far out are you starting to see that, right from launch, or is it like in the last few days?
So the critical mass is obviously in the small weeks leading up to the conference, because that's when most of the startups have registered, most of the investors have registered. We have a very specific timing and cadence for when we announce that it's happening and start to get people excited about it, and then open up the platform for the matchmaking to happen. And most of it, we have regular meetings with our Brella team who works with us on the project. where we are tracking how we're doing toward meetings and if we need to do more marketing and let startups know about it a little bit more. But it really has taken off to where, like I said, people are writing in, asking about it before they even buy a ticket. So we're pretty confident that we'll have the critical mass we need to have. How many meetings did we have in San Francisco?
Over 1,000, 1,500, I think.
Yeah.
It's a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
And then, from your point of view, do you like to see the post-event conversation still going on? And
yeah,
what
we're actually able
happens
to measure only the amount of messages sent pre-event, at the event, after an event. We do see a lot of follow-ups, not, of course, the context of those follow-ups, but the amount of messages sent. So both sides, goes from investor to startup, startup to investor. People are reaching out through the platform. And we were just talking about this earlier today, that we've even heard term sheets signed at the event, and we're not able to see that butterfly effect yet, but we're thinking of ways to better understand the business side of it, like how many companies got funded through CrunchMatch. That would be, of course, amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've noticed is that I've got the Brella app on my phone,
Yeah.
but is that just a skin for a web app as opposed to a native app, or exactly?
We have both. Brella is a web app, fully mobile responsive web application, and then we have the native apps to support the on-site experience.
And do you see a preference for the way people use that?
If we look at the data, we actually see that 80 to 90% use the desktop and web app.
It's that high, 80 to 90%. And at TechCrunch, is that the case as well?
Yes.
So people are not looking for space on their phones to download a native app.
Yeah. I guess the problem is that downloading apps is extremely difficult pre-event. People are sort of getting bored of downloads in the sense that phones are full. It's just another app. So we're giving an environment where they don't need to perform on that. Also, the average use of time is around 30 minutes, which means that no one would ever sort of download an app and do the same activities in such extensive length than they would on their desktops and their screens and work environments.
Yeah, well, Brella's pretty simple to use, though, on a web app, so I've been using it.
Yeah.
I've had meetings in there.
Yeah.
Has anybody in here got a meeting in the Brella room? Yeah, a few of you, good. Who's downloaded a native app in the last week? 2 people. Who's downloaded a native app in the last month? Few of you. Who hasn't downloaded a native app in the last 3 months? Yeah, one of you. So it doesn't look like people are downloading apps much. So I think they're on the right track, these guys. Yeah. I've got another couple of questions for you, Leslie. The startups that are coming to your event, the stars of the show, how keen are they to actually engage with the investors through the app, or is it more the investors that are wanting to engage through the app? Do you see a difference there?
We do. So the way that our events break out in terms of rough percentages are that 50% of the people who are attending are a startup, a founder, an entrepreneur. 25% of those who are attending are investors, and then the other 25% make up developers, engineers, and then other people who want to be who are on the periphery of the startup industry. So the numbers are going to be higher in terms of eagerness and engagement from a startup perspective, just because of the split. And what we find and what makes Brella such a natural fit for us is in San Francisco, the market is just so oversaturated in terms of the number of VCs, investors, and angels, against the number of startups, that a lot of investors don't want to have their name on their conference badge. They turn their badges around so that they can walk through the conference with some type of anonymity, because otherwise it's just not a comfortable experience for them. And so what we found with Brella is that being able to register on the app and select the meetings that they want, if they don't spend a ton of time on our conference floor, that's actually okay with us, because they are going and meeting the startups that they want to meet, which will hopefully lead to deal flow for them, investment for startups, or just general networking. So, so that's one of the ways that we've seen a lot of success that way. Big investors that you might not expect would, want to use something like CrunchMatch do, because they can trust the startups that TechCrunch is bringing to the conference and the method by which they're going to meet them.
Okay, and then are you finding that, Jyrki, on the sign-ups, say the investors might use their email address to sign up so they don't have to upload a photograph from the social media, so they can't be identified. They might have the name there, but they're completely anonymous, or people are quite happy to share their photographs on the web app?
It's, if you're a VC, you're active VC, it's in your job description to find relevant startups into your pipeline, so everyone is on their true identity. I mean, even though it's your top 3 VCs in the Silicon Valley, they are working by their own name, and every credentials are 100% accurate.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to Glissa now, because we've got some questions come in. You can see them down there. So we've got, how do you encourage engagement? Does anyone not use Brella? Let's go for you, Leslie. I think this is a good question for you.
Yeah, it's actually a natural progression to where we're at today in terms of how we want to integrate Brella even more into our conferences. So the way that we encourage engagement, it's twofold. We write about CrunchMatch opening up on our event site, on the website. We put it up on our social channels. We market Startup Alley. We tell the Startup Battlefield teams about it and give them an opportunity to engage. And like I said, there's a lot of active engagement on the startup and attendee side. For the investor side, we have specific marketing for them as well, where we talk about the benefits of it and really just make it available. Does anyone not use Brella? So it was limited in its very first form just to startups and investors. If you were not a startup and you were not an investor, you did not have access to CrunchMatch. And I'm very lucky, and I get to do a lot of piloting out here in my role. We're going to be opening up the CrunchMatch experience to everybody at Disrupt Berlin 2018, which is in a few short weeks at the end of the month, and offer it to everybody to be able to use the same type of matching service. And so we're very curious to see, because we give people opportunities to say that they're interested in mentoring or networking or investment or product feedback. And so obviously with just startups and investors, there's a clear need for investment matching. But for the rest of the conference, we're very curious to see how this affects our numbers and makes it efficient for everybody to be there. So we're reserving a rather large area for CrunchMatch in Berlin, and we're excited to see what the numbers do there.
Okay, the next question, I'm slightly confused. This is one key factor that aided your success. Are we talking about Brella or TechCrunch? Who asked that question? Who asked that question? Second one down. Okay, let's talk about your success first, and then we'll talk about Leslie's success.
Well, I think it's about the success of the CrunchMatch, which in itself already describes also probably the reason why we've been successful is that we like to and we want to work very close with our clients. I think their success is our success in a way that if we have 1,000 happy customers in the end user part, it's all gonna sort of benefit us as well. So we like to be very involved with our clients, and it is a common team effort as we're pulling sort of for the same goal. And the goal is for those attendees to have a great experience, great networking experience. So the better we work together, it's just good for everyone. So I think a big part of that is that if you work with us, it's not just acquiring an app. It's more of a partnership in its true identity.
And that's important to us as well. Brella isn't a vendor, they are a partner. We went into this relationship knowing that there were things we did not know, and we were absolutely fine with that and very, very happy to be guided. And I would wager that if we didn't have the relationship with Brella that we do, that CrunchMatch wouldn't be as successful as it is.
Okay, and then we've got a question about actual TechCrunch. is why did you start with startups at first? So I think it's about the culture of your...
Yeah, that's just what we are. I mean, we... when I came on board, I've been at TechCrunch for 7.5 years. I mean, what we do is obsessively profile startups 24 hours a day on what was a blog, and now we like to say we've grown up and now it's a publication. But startups are what we love. Seed stage, bootstrapped, all the way up to having IPO'd, and they're no longer startups anymore, but they're relevant in the news. Like, that is what we cover. So that's why we started targeting them first, and then everybody else kind of follows on the tail.
Okay, and then the last question we have up there is why the bot? And I'm not getting that. Are you getting that?
No?
What we're talking about is the Brella bot, Brella Mac bot, which is actually the interface talking with both of the users. So whenever a meeting is booked, there's a person called Brella Mac bot, which is this first of all telling you in which table are you seating and maybe a funny joke. So it's just to make it a very approachable way of informing information. I think it's a fun perspective. This doesn't have to be dead serious. It's just meeting people to validate whether we should be meeting again. So that's just to bring that sort of perspective into the meeting booking section.
Great. Leslie, any closing remarks on the success of networking and using a networking platform to do that?
I mean, the only thing that I would say is that it has changed the face and the value of our conference for the better, and that's something that as conference organizers, you're always looking for ways to tweak and innovate, and it's really hard to, because with conferences, oftentimes you're down in the weeds managing expenses and vendors and revenue and people, and to be able to look up and actually have the opportunity to say what will benefit our attendees and how do we give that to them, it's a very rewarding part of the job to finally be able to do that and to have done it so well.
Great, and I think we're going to call it to a close there, unless we have any more questions from the audience. No? Well, Leslie, thank you very much, coming all the way from the Bay Area, I
live
suspect.
here. North London.
Oh, North London.
The
She
wilds
came
of
from
North London.
everybody. Thank you very much. And Jyrki, thank you very much, and thank you very much for sponsoring our fantastic networking today.
Gladly.
Thank you,
Thank you
very much.